Welcome in the studio. Let me customize it quickly. No. Oh, that's good. Okay. Today I have in the studio Mr. Yves Choueifaty, who is a mathematician by education. He's a member of the club of the 300 and former CEO of Crédit Lyonnais Asset Management. He's also president of a French management company called Tobam since 2005. Mr. Choueifaty, thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you for receiving me.
How do you approach cryptocurrency and blockchain technology?
You know, the founder of all of that was a guy which is unknown called Satoshi Nakamoto. And Satoshi Nakamoto came up with a solution to a specific problem. You know, I usually say that Satoshi Nakamoto is unknown, but he has two fathers. One of the fathers of Satoshi Nakamoto is the one who really framed the problem, Friedrich Hayek. Friedrich Hayek used to say that as soon as you give to a group of people the monopoly of money issuance, one day or another, this group of people will abuse this monopoly. And from this abuse will result crises that are very often cataclysmic crises. And he said that if he wants to get rid of those crises, we need to get rid of the monopoly. He wrote a book about that I cannot enough advise you to read. It's a 200 pages book called Denationalization of Money. It's really a critique book about the history of money that is extremely enjoyable and very enlightening. The second father of Satoshi is William of Ockham. William of Ockham, in many aspects, is the founder of modern science. He is the inventor of Occam's razor, also called the principle of parsimony, by which whenever, it's a philosophical principle, by which whenever you have two solutions to a same problem, you should always try to find the simplest solution. You should use your razor, Occam's razor, in order to simplify the solution and make it the simplest as possible. And when designing the Bitcoin, Satoshi used Occam's razor. He tried to create a candidate currency which value proposal would be as simple as possible. And the Bitcoin's value proposal is in fact one sentence. And the sentence is, there is 21 million of it. And the whole blockchain technology has been created by Satoshi to serve only one purpose, which is to ensure that this sentence, there is 21 million of it, will never be proven wrong. As a scientist, as a mathematician by background, I really have embedded in me the idea that we should find solutions that are simplified. And in a way, the same way that you can summarize a car by saying a car is a box with four wheels, a fifth wheel, an accelerator, a brake, an engine, and a tank, you can summarize the Bitcoin by saying there is 21 million of it. And that's the story. Okay? And all of the technology is here to make it that this sentence will never, never, never be proven wrong.
Very good. So and now I'm talking to the banker and to the investor. Which risk and opportunities do you identify with this new technology?
As a professional investor, I always approach something new by trying to write an investment thesis. Okay? When we started really becoming professional about the Bitcoin in 2016, this is what we did. In the beginning, we formed a dedicated research team. And the first mission I gave to this dedicated research team was to write an investment thesis on the Bitcoin. And after a few months, we were able to really write a 90-page investment thesis on the Bitcoin. as soon as you write the thesis, there is something else that appears automatically. It is the antithesis. It's very important to realize that you should never wait for the antithesis to be proven wrong before you invest. When the antithesis is proven wrong, it's too late. If I come to you with the thesis that the stock of Apple could be worth $5,000 a stock, there is, of course, an antithesis. And if you wait for the antithesis to be really proven wrong, it's that the price is already $5,000 and it's too late to invest. Okay? So the risk is really the struggle between the thesis and the antithesis. The Bitcoin is still a startup. Yeah, it's really like Google in 1997 or 1995. I don't recall precisely. You don't know. There's one thing you cannot do about a startup. It's pricing a startup. Nobody on this planet knows how to price a startup. And this uncertainty on the price results into the volatility. There's one thing I can tell you. It is that extremely probably the price of the Bitcoin in 10 years' time will be either lower than $100 or higher than $1 million. And it is really the struggle between those two scenarios that explains the high volatility of the price of the Bitcoin.
And at Tobam, are you taking risk or chances with those cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, the philosophy of Tobam can be summarized into one word: diversification. Before creating Tobam and after Crédit Lyonnais Asset Management, I went back to research. And the subject of my research was that everybody in our industry, in the industry of asset management, talks about diversification. But very funnily, diversification is not measurable. There is no measurement for diversification. In our industry, we measure everything: volatilities, tracking errors, alpha, beta, gamma, theta, vega, rho, etc. But there is no measurement for diversification. And the subject of my research was really to try to find a measurement for diversification, which I did. And as soon as you can measure something, you can maximize it. Okay, so Tobam is really about that. It's about, in a way, renouncing forecasting and trying to diversify. Definitely, the Bitcoin is a good diversifier. So definitely, the Bitcoin has its place in a well-diversified asset allocation. The speculator is the one who doesn't buy Bitcoin. What does it mean to speculate? The term speculate comes from the Latin word speculare, as the spectators come from speculare as well. This is why you call those spectacles. A speculator is somebody that has a view on the future and that will want to take advantage of his view by building an appropriate portfolio. The only way to justify you don't buy Bitcoin is that you have a view on the Bitcoin. You're a speculator. If you don't have a view on it, you need to use it for diversification purposes. You know, I was interviewed by the French Senate something like 5 years ago in order to introduce the Bitcoin to the French senators. And the chairman did ask me the question, but the Bitcoin is very risky. What's your opinion on that? I told him, you're right. Bitcoin is like chlorine. You know, chlorine is a combat gas. It's extremely dangerous. But if you put 2 drops of chlorine in a glass of water, you will have drinkable water. It's the same with the Bitcoin. If you could put a relatively small quantity of Bitcoin in a well-diversified portfolio, it will increase its diversification even further. It will, in fact, reduce the risk of your portfolio, including about 2% of Bitcoin in a 60-40 portfolio will reduce the risk of the portfolio as a consequence of the diversification capability of the Bitcoin.
So apart from Bitcoin, you know, we just saw some catastrophes in Asia with Luma. There's Ethereum. There's a lot of talks with Binance coins and many others. would you apply your principle to all those currency, or are you just a big fan of Bitcoin in particular?
No, no, absolutely not. You should not apply diversification to any universe of assets. You need to apply diversification on a universe of assets, which assets have an investment thesis. If after all, my share here is an asset, including this asset in a well-diversified portfolio could not make sense. Okay, so your first step is always to build investment thesis. And when there is an investment thesis, of course, there is also the antithesis. Now you're able to include the asset in the portfolio. Now you told me there is not only the Bitcoin, there are plenty of other cryptos. I think we are living fascinating times. We are living the birth of a new ecosystem. It's really a new ecosystem, which is growing in a very unorganized way, like any ecosystem, like life, like the car maker sectors. You know how many car makers there were in France in the beginning of the 20th century? About 350. Okay. When you have this, incredible development of life, incredible development of an ecosystem, you have the birth of many organisms. Some organisms have a problem, and you want them to die quickly. Okay, life was dominated by the reptiles. There were only a few mammals. And later on, it was the domination of mammals. And it is the same in crypto. The only difference between crypto and the other ecosystems, it is the speed of all of that. Remember the early years of internet. And look at what is Yahoo now. Look at what is America Online now. Look at mobile phones. Look at Nokia. Look at Motorola as provider of mobile phone. Look at, BlackBerry.
Alta Vista.
Look at Alta Vista, to get back to internet. Who would have guessed that it is a website selling books online when nobody's reading books anymore that is going to dominate the world's economy? So it's very difficult to forecast. Hence, the idea of being diversified. Hence, the idea that what arrived to Luna could be absolutely forecasted. It's clear that certain organisms are going to fail. And because this is a story of any ecosystem. You have a struggle for life, and the fittest will survive.
And in terms of the risk that people are seeing, can you anticipate application? You were saying Amazon, at the time we thought it was just a bookseller, but it ended up being the biggest shop in the world selling everything. Which use cases do you anticipate? Elon Musk is saying that he's going to use Binance in the Twitter transaction if he's allowed to go forward. Do you see other ways to use this technology in everyday life? Okay,
so when we started buying and looking at crypto in 2013, we became really professional in 2016, but we started in 2013. I drew a picture representing a very developing tree with one extremely solid branch. And I used to say, this very solid branch is a Bitcoin. And most of this tree is going to turn dry. Because, as I told you, the ecosystem will grow in so many directions. Only a few directions are going to be sterile. We are now in 2022. And I have a high conviction that one branch that is going to grow probably very solidly is decentralized finance. And what is decentralized finance? Decentralized finance is this phenomenon by which two things happened. The first thing, it is that an enormous quantity of wealth has been accumulated into crypto. About $2 to $3 trillion of wealth have been accumulated into crypto. This is the first phenomenon. And the second phenomenon, it is that traditional financial institutions refuse to service this wealth. When in fact, as soon as you have accumulation of wealth, you have a need for servicing. What is the job of a banker? If you think about it, the original job of a banker is not to lend wealth. It's to lend liquidity to wealthy people. I imagine you have a wealth of $100 million. Imagine you own a factory which is worth $100 million. The banker will come and tell you, if you give me your factory as a guarantee, I can lend you $10 million. After he has lent you to $10 million, you still have a wealth of $100 million because you are short the liability, you are long the cash, and you still have your factory. So the banker did not lend you any wealth, it has lended you liquidity. And when you have accumulated wealth in crypto, there is no banker which was ready to lend you some liquidity. Hence DeFi. Why? Because as soon as you have a need, and in front of this need you have a vacuum, nature abhors vacuum. So this tree that I was telling you about was provided with a room of expansion, which is a vacuum in front of the need that was present. Hence the development of this branch called DeFi. The advantage of, traditional bankers not providing you with services, it is that DeFi has been developed without any legacy. And when you develop a system, an ecosystem, or a sub-ecosystem without legacy, you will end up providing a service which is 100 times more efficient than the one who is, obliged to run his legacy as well. I will celebrate in September my 30th anniversary in the field of asset management. So I've been doing asset management for 30 years, and I happen to be a very good skier. And whenever I do conferences or I give, lectures, I have very often said that finance is like practicing ski on a foggy slope. When I enter into a swap with JP Morgan, the only part of JP Morgan I can see at that precise moment is the other leg of the swap. I can potentially access the balance sheet of JP Morgan 3 months ago, but at the moment of the swap, I cannot see anything of JP Morgan. I don't know whether they are hedging the swap, whether they are selling the swap at a different price to a different person. I cannot see anything of JP Morgan. With DeFi, I suddenly have the impression that I'm practicing ski, and suddenly there is no fog at all on the whole resort. You can see every single transaction on a real-time basis. The market is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I can access this market, whether I'm based in Paris, London, Washington, Lima, Santiago, Conakry. I can access it at the same condition, whether I have $100 or $100 million. Everything happens real time. So I really believe that there is a branch, decentralized finance, which is going to be as well a disruptive innovation. What is this? The definition of a disruptive innovation? It's innovation that can change the world. There are many other applications of the blockchain technology, but here I'm really talking about finance. Blockchain, it will definitely change the world. Whether you will want to access a plane in the future, whether you will want to access a show, a football match in an efficient fashion, without, the mess that we can see from time to time in this kind of occasions. The blockchain and NFTs are going to be very, very helpful to provide you with a ticket which is reliable, which is unforgeable, unreproducible. This technology is really, in my mind, going to change the world.
Perfect. Well, I would like to thank you very much for these insights. I will follow up, of course, with an article in our magazine where our viewers can also read your analysis on the topic. So on this, thank you very much for taking the time, and I look forward to talking with you again.
Thank you very much, Jérôme. Goodbye.